Imagine waking up, believing your greatest enemy had vanished, only to realize too late that they were already inside your walls. A single night would determine the fate of an empire, and by dawn, Troy would no longer exist. But was it really just a trick of war, or was Troy always destined to fall? This is the story of history's greatest deception, the Trojan Horse. For 10 years, the Greeks and Trojans fought a war that seemed endless. The war began with a single act of love, or was it betrayal? Paris of Troy had taken Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, from her husband, the Spartan king Menelaus. But was this really about Helen? Troy sat at the gateway between East and West, controlling a crucial trade route that connected the Mediterranean to Asia. This war wasn't just about a woman. It was about power, wealth, and control. But Troy had something else: legendary defenses. The city's 15-foot-thick walls, according to myth, were built by the gods Poseidon and Apollo. Whether divine or not, they had one effect: they made Troy impenetrable. As year 10 of the war dragged on, Greek morale collapsed. Disease, starvation, and exhaustion had set in. Some leaders wanted to abandon the fight altogether. But Odysseus, the most cunning of all the Greeks, had one final plan. Then one morning, the Greeks were gone. The Trojans awoke to silence. No Greek army, no war machines. Just the vast, empty battlefield, and a single, enormous wooden horse standing like a sentinel in the morning light. The people gathered around it, murmuring in awe and suspicion. The horse was a colossal marvel, over 30 feet tall, crafted from beams of pine and cypress, ornately carved with symbols of Athena. Was it divine tribute, a message, a trap? Then came Sinon, the ragged, battered figure bound in chains. He was dragged before King Priam and the Trojan court. Between gasps and feigned sobs, he spun his tale. He had defected, he said, abandoned by his comrades for refusing to support Odysseus's blasphemous scheme. The horse, he claimed, was an offering to Athena, meant to ensure safe passage home for the Greeks. And he warned, if the Trojans dared destroy it, they would bring the goddess's wrath upon themselves. This wasn't just clever acting, it was psychological warfare. The Greeks understood their enemy's religion better than the Trojans realized. Athena was revered not only for wisdom, but as a patron of war and strategy. To harm an offering made in her name would have been a dangerous sacrilege. And yet, not everyone was fooled. Cassandra, cursed by Apollo to prophesy true visions that no one would believe, screamed until her voice broke. She foresaw flames and slaughter. The priest Laocoon, too, perhaps the only other skeptic, delivered the now famous warning: beware of Greeks bearing gifts. But before he could rouse the people, serpents from the sea, sent by the gods, some said, devoured him and his sons before the city's eyes. The omen was clear: the horse must be welcomed. And so, with joy, drums, and hymns, the Trojans pulled it past their walls. The gates groaned open, the very gates that had held for 10 years. That night, Troy feasted. The wine flowed, fires blazed, music echoed from the palace to the walls. For the first time in a decade, Troy celebrated without fear. But in the belly of the wooden horse, silence reigned. Odysseus, Diomedes, Menelaus, and the elite warriors of Greece waited in breathless darkness. These were the best of their generation, veterans of a brutal war, hand-picked for a mission of shadows. Some legends say the horse held as many as 30 soldiers, each crammed in with weapons and resolve. At midnight the city slumbered. Then a groan of timber, a latch turned. From the belly of the beast, the Greeks emerged like spirits from the underworld. Odysseus led them down by rope into the silent streets. They split into teams, some headed for the gates to unlock them, others to key strongholds. And then the signal. A single torch lit high on Troy's battlements. Far offshore, Greek ships that had feigned retreat reversed course. They had hidden behind nearby islets, sails furled, oars ready. In under an hour, the main Greek force was ashore and storming through the gates now flung wide. What followed was no battle, it was a massacre. The sleeping were slaughtered in their beds, the temples were desecrated, statues toppled. King Priam, once regal and revered, was dragged from the altar of Zeus and struck down by Neoptolemus, Achilles' vengeful son. And Helen? Legends vary. Some say she wept as she watched Troy burn. Others claim she simply awaited her fate. Menelaus, sword drawn, hesitated, struck by her beauty once again. Was she seductress or scapegoat? No one could agree. But she lived. Troy did not. What actually happened that night? For centuries, scholars debated whether the Trojan horse was myth, metaphor, or something real. The idea of hiding warriors inside a statue sounds implausible, but not impossible. Ancient siege tactics were far more advanced than many realize. In fact, Greek engineers were renowned for their ingenuity. Later sources describe them building siege towers, battering rams, and even early forms of catapults. Could the horse have been a form of mobile siege engine, or something else entirely? One theory suggests the horse was symbolic. In Homer's time, the word for horse, hippos, was sometimes used in naval contexts. Ancient Greek ships, especially swift attack vessels like Pentacontas, often bore horsehead prows. Could bringing the horse into Troy have meant a stealth naval assault on the harbor? Another theory links the horse to Poseidon, as god of both horses and earthquakes. Perhaps the story is an allegory. A devastating quake may have shattered Troy's walls. Ancient peoples often personified disasters as acts of divine will. If Poseidon destroyed Troy, then the horse becomes a poetic symbol, an invisible destroyer within. But archaeological evidence gives us something firmer. In the 19th century, Heinrich Schliemann excavated a site in modern-day Turkey called Hisarlik. He uncovered the remains of a city that bore the scars of fire and battle, matching the description of Homeric Troy. Subsequent digs revealed 9 layers of settlement, with one Troy A dating to around 1180 BCE. When the Mycenaean Greeks were at their peak, this layer was violently destroyed. So was there a wooden horse? We may never know. But the tale endured not because of its physical reality, but because of its psychological truth. The Trojan horse became the symbol of how arrogance, misplaced trust, and the blindness of victory can lead to ruin. And the Greeks, though they won the war, many met tragic fates, as if the gods themselves were punishing them for their cunning. Odysseus wandered the seas for 10 more years. Ajax defied the gods and drowned. Agamemnon returned home, only to be murdered in his bath. In the end, no one escaped unscathed. The Trojan horse wasn't just a trick of ancient warfare, it became a symbol, a legend, a warning etched across time. What destroyed Troy wasn't brute force or a massive army, it was trust. The Trojans opened their gates not to swords, but to a gift. They celebrated a victory that wasn't real. And by the time they saw the truth, it was too late. That's why the Trojan horse endures. Today, we still speak its name. But now, it's not just a wooden statue, it's malware hidden in an email. It's propaganda disguised as truth. It's betrayal behind a smile. In the world of cyber warfare, Trojan horse viruses infiltrate our systems by pretending to be harmless. In politics, false narratives and psychological operations work their way into societies like invisible armies in disguise. And in our daily lives, trust is still the gate that opens us to either connection or destruction. What happened to Troy wasn't just a fall, it was a lesson. Because history doesn't just repeat itself. Sometimes it hides inside the walls, waiting. So ask yourself, what have we already let in?